So I'm in Vectric Aspire, VCarve Pro or Vectric Aspire. Either or basically be the same for this. And what we're doing here is we're just setting a landscape that's big enough for me to import vectors, figure out sign size, just the initial job setup. So here we're importing from Illustrator the Epic Yard Farm vectors. And then here I'm just creating a rectangle that is going to be the actual sign size, roughly, and just getting it on the canvas. So I was just making sure that the canvas is big enough for it to center up, but I'm actually moving it out of the way while I deal with the, you know, farm tree part of the sign. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to decide what kind of method to carve out this this particular part of the sign with. I know it's quite small, and so I'm setting up to do a V-carve and see what that looks like. And so this is the tool path. And this is the rendering, which in VCarve and Aspire is pretty good without wasting wood. Get an idea of what it looks like. So here I'm making another tool path on the same thing, because I'm debating whether just pocketing it out as opposed to a V-carve will be better. So all these tools are Amana tools database loaded into VCarve. You can pull it down from their website. So here I'm previewing just the pocket tool path. So here I was thinking I would maybe put it in a box. I partly use that for positioning, but I also was kind of pondering with cutting it out as a box and then putting it on a piece of wood with a little more dimension. So here I just do a profile cut on a box around it. And later I remove this cut, but I use the box to help with positioning and sizing. So now I'm starting to deal with the yard farm script part. And really all I'm doing is I'm seeing the vectors where they were single vectors, and I'm grouping them so I can move them independently. So here I was doing a profile toolpath, but with a 1/16 bit tool, but mostly I'm just getting a clue of how much bigger I have to make this in order for the smallest bit that I have, that is a end mill bit. So as you can see, I need to go larger because I'm not cutting all the way through. So now I'm grouping all of it, knowing that I gotta resize it. And here's where I'm lining it up to the box that I put around the barn and trees. So here I switched to doing a pocket toolpath with the 1/16 bit, again, to see if I gotta go larger, which I do. So now I'm putting a rectangle, which is the actual sign size, around this stuff so that I know how much room I have to play with as I make it larger. So this was just a series of grouping everything, moving it, realigning it to the center of the rectangle, and then ungrouping things so I can deal with them individually. So making sure that I link X and Y so that as I increase the size of this, it doesn't distort. And I'm just guessing here. I'm just putting numbers in, seeing what it looks like, moving things around. So that calculator is recalculate all tool paths. It errors when I have things still grouped that are different tool paths. So then I have to ungroup it, recalculate the tool paths. Here's where I decide to get rid of that box and the tool path for it. So as you can see, when I did the rendering, I'm still too small in the script. So I'm not cutting through for a pocket near the R's. So bumping up the size of the yard farm part, repositioning it a little bit, recalculating tool path. And now we look like it'll cut. So now we'll deal with the cutout of the actual sign from the raw material. So we want it to round the corners here. There's a couple different ways to do this. You can make a box with rounded corners. A lot of times I like to just go in and do a fillet with the fillet tool. So that's what you saw here. And of course, saving the file. So here I'm picking a common downcut end mill that I use. I'm not sponsored by Amana or anything, but I pretty much exclusively use their bits. They're good bits. The tool database in VCarve is handy. And most of the time I get them from Tools Today. So here all I'm doing is actually creating the file with the instructions specific to our Axiom Elite AR16 machine. And so it's two files because it's two different bits. A 1/16 bit is doing the pockets, and then a 1/8 bit is doing the outer cut. So then I go back and change to center origin, which you have to recalculate all the toolpaths for. But when I lay it out on the CNC machine with the raw piece of wood, and it's easier for me to do it from center origin in this particular case. So here I'm setting the cut depth from 3/4 to 1 inch, realizing that it was a 3/4 inch cut depth before, but the piece of wood is 1 inch. So then I'm resaving the two toolpath files with the two different bits. So they have my center origin change and my cut depth change. Then here, I go back and realize that even though I had a 1/16 bit selected originally, I didn't have the exact 1/16 bit that is what I have and own and will be using in the machine. So I'm fixing those. And I'm switching the profile pass here. I actually much prefer the profile pass to happen first, mostly for my convenience of how active I watch the CNC. The profile pass will tell me it's outer perimeter, and then it'll cut out the inside right away, so I can watch it and then kind of clean up the shop while the rest of it's going. All I'm doing here is with my woodpecker ruler and tape measure, just identifying roughly the center of the material so I can origin there. So here, the Axiom CNC machines all have a separate controller and you load the file. So all I'm doing here is taking it from a USB stick and copying those two CNC files onto the onboard memory for the CNC. Ideally, you should always run an Axiom CNC from its onboard memory instead of from a USB stick. So here I'm just loading the bit for the first tool path. And here I'm just moving the machine to get to the origin, the XY origin, to tell the machine this is the center point of the board, so it matches. So now I tell it that XY is the center point, and then the Z is the surface of the material. Now obviously this board is quite warped. It's reclaimed barnwood, but it's close enough if I just get it to the center and cut out of the center, which is why I did center origin. So now we basically just, on this controller, we pick the file on the onboard memory, which I had copied to, and then we tell it to start running. So here I'm resetting the Z origin since I changed to the second bit for the second toolpath. So just setting just Z, not XY, they stay the same from the previous toolpath. And then running the second one.